Hello, my name is Toby, and today we're going to be building an online forum web application using the Codebots platform. The first thing that we're going to want to do is go to the platform and we're going to create a new application. Cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into Custom Setup, we're going to click Custom App, and then for this walkthrough we'll be choosing Springbot. And we're going to call the website online forum, and then we're going to get started building the entity model. All right, so the entity model for this application, what we're going to need is we're going to need a user, so we're going to call that end user, and then we're going to attach the user extension to that entity. Then we're also going to make another entity for admin, and then we'll also be attaching the user extension to that entity. And then we're going to want a post, and then a post is going to have contents, and so then whenever a post is displayed on the website, the contents will be what is displayed. And then we will also have a comment, and then the comment will also have contents which will be displayed on the site. And then we want to create relationships between our entities. So what we're going to have is a user can have many posts, and then a user can create many comments. And a post can have multiple comments. Alright, so that's everything we need for our entity diagram. So let's go over to the interface and start building that. So the home page is going to be called feed. So this is where all the posts will be coming through, and then we're going to have a page for an individual post. So then on the feed, we're going to add. So at the top, we're going to add a section where the user can create a new post. So we're going to have a horizontal layout, we're going to have an input added to that, and then we're going to add a button which the user will click to add their new post. So we'll name all of these. And then below that, we're going to add a custom area where we're going to write some custom code later. Cool. And then in the individual post page, we're going to start with a custom area. And then below that, we'll have another horizontal layout with an input and a button so that the user can add comments on the post. Cool. So that's everything that we need for the interface on the platform. Everything else we'll be doing in custom code in the application. All right, Right, so then in our security diagram, first thing we need to do is we need to click on the sidebar here and make sure that the admin has access to the back end of the application. And then we'll be giving the admin full permissions on the website. All right, and then the end user, they need to be able to access the feed and post page. They need to be able to create, read, and update and delete posts. And then the same thing with comments. Yep. They should be able to read and update an end user so that they can update and see their own profile. And then we want visitors to be able to create end users so that they can register an account. Right, so that is everything that we need for the platform side of this application. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to build that application. Alright, so now we're going to go and check out our source code, and then we're going to clone that down to our local machine. Now that we've created our application on the Codebots platform and we've cloned it down to our local machine, we can begin writing some custom code. Now, the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to update the routing in the application because because currently the post page is just a single page which exists within the application, whereas we want to change it so that that post page can accept an ID input, and then that ID input will be used to determine what post should be displayed. So for that, we're going to go into the client side. Then we're going to go into this front-end routing module. And then we're going to turn on this protected region here for adding any additional front-end routes. And then we will set the path. So that'll be post/ID. All right, so now that route's been added into the application, so then whenever we pass in an extra parameter after post, then that will be an ID which we'll then use to fetch a post from the database. Yeah, all right, so now we're just going to go in and we're going to start up our application. So while we're waiting for that, we can start writing some of the custom code for our feed page. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to turn on this protected regions for adding any additional interfaces. And in there, we're going to add implements init. Okay, and then down here in the same file, we can turn on this add any additional class methods protected region. And then we're going to add a constructor. So the constructor will just be run whenever this page is loaded. Now that our application has started, we can go in and we can add the constructor and ng-on-init function to our feed page. So this code that we add to these functions will essentially be run every time that the feed page is navigated to before anything else happens. Right. Within that ng-on-init function, which is run whenever the page is navigated to, we want to write a query which is going to fetch all of the posts in the website. So the way we're going to do that is we need to create some query parameters. Yep. So now that we've written all the code which will be run whenever we navigate to the feed page, we should write the HTML so that we can see all of that data whenever it comes in. So what we want to do here is we want to turn on the protected region for the custom component which we added to our feed page before, and then in there we are going to add our code. We're going to add our code which will display all of the posts. Now that we've written some basic HTML which would show the content of any posts that we've added to the database, let's go in and create some dummy data to make sure that that shows up. Yeah, all right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go into the admin section of the website, and we're going to create a couple of post entities. So now, as we can see, the data that we added into the database is now being shown on the post page. Now we're going to go through later and do some styling to clean all of this up, but for now we can see that the data is showing up as we'd expect. The next thing that we want to do is we want to go into the post page and then set that up so that we can pass in an ID through the URL, and then we can use that ID to get a post from the database. So at this point, what I'm doing is I'm adding in some of the HTML so that we can see the comments on the page. So we've added this statement here, which will allow us to loop through all of the comments and print out some code, and then just show some code for every comment. And so again, for the time being, we're just going to set this up so that we can see the content of any comment, and then later on we can go in and we can make sure and we can just add extra stuff there. But this is just to make sure that this will all work. Now that we've gone through and we've set up the code to fetch the comments from the database when we navigate to the post page, and we've written the HTML so that those comments will be displayed, we're going to go into the admin section of the site and we're going to add a couple of comments to make sure that that works properly. At this point, we're also going to go back to the feed page, and we're going to add a button to every post, which will let us navigate to that post's individual page. And so then we can navigate to that page and we'll be able to see the comments which have been added. Cool. All right, so to finalize that little part, we have to go back into the TypeScript for our feed page, and we need to add a function called navigate to post, and then that's going to take ID. That's going to take an ID as an argument. Then we'll add the router in here. Yep, cool. So now that that's all done, we should on our feed page for every post we should have the content, and we should have a button, and that button will navigate us to the post page. And so then if we go to the post page, which has the comments we added before, then we should be able to see the comments. Now that we've finalized the client-side code for getting the posts from the server, we need to add in a condition to the server, which will allow us to fetch comments based on their post. So we're going to go into the server-side code now, and we're going to add that. And so in the client side, we named our path post ID. So we need to add a case to this protected region here for adding any additional cases to the custom query parameters. So we need to turn that protected region on. Cool, so now that we've added that, we just need to, we'll need to restart the server. So now that we've added that query condition to the server and we've gone back to the client side, we can see that the comment that we added to a post only appears on the post that it was added to. And then if we go to the other post, then it doesn't show up. All right, so that's essentially everything that we need in terms of fetching data from the database. So now what we're going to do is we're going to set up creation and deletion of posts and comments. In order to handle creating posts, what we want to do is we want to go into the authentication service, because the authentication service handles any logic which is run when the user logs in, and we need to be able to access the ID of the currently logged in user. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down to this function, which is called after authenticated. We're going to turn on this protected region to customize it, and then we're going to add to local storage the ID of the user who has just been logged in. So now that we've added that, we can access that user ID when we're creating our post, and then we can pass that ID in as the ID of the user who created the post. In order to set up creation of posts, we want to go in to our feed page, and we're going to customize this on-click create post method. Now, this method is added to the bots when we added our create post button when we created this application on the platform. And so a function like this will be generated for any button which you add. So we're going to go in, we're going to turn on the protected region, and then we are going to add some code for creating a post. Now, in order to do this, we're going to access the value of this create post text input control form control, which was added to the code and is linked up to this create post input, which we added on the platform. So with that, we can get the value of that. Yep. So we can get the value of that, the current value of that form control, and then if there is any text in there, then we can create a new post, and then we can create a post in the database. And then we can go and we can fetch all of the posts again. And so then what that will do, that will ensure that the posts are updated in real time, and that we don't have to reload to see our new post. So now if we go in and we create a post, and then we click create post, then we can see that post has been added to our feed page. All right. And so now we want to go in and we want to do the same thing for comments. So post page, we have a similar function, this on-click create comment function. And so what we can do is we can turn that protected region on, and then we can add our code for creating a comment. And then that code is going to be quite similar to the code that we wrote for creating a post. Okay, and similarly to the other one, we're going to create the comment, and then we're going to fetch all the comments again. And so then that will again allow us to update the comment in real time, so that the user doesn't have to reload the page to see them. Okay, cool. So now that that's all been created, we can go back to our post page. Yeah, and then we can type in some text for a comment. And then we can create a comment, and then that will show up on the page. The next thing that we want to handle is the deletion of posts. So posts should only be deletable by the user that created them. So we need to go into our feed page, and then we need to add a new button. We need to add a new button for deleting a post. Yep. But we should only make that button visible if the post was created by that user. So we're going to add a function which we can use to check if the current user is the one that created the post, and then if that user didn't create the post, then we don't display the button. Cool. And so now that now that we've got that, we can add a function to that button to delete the post whenever they click it. Okay, now that we've added that button in, we can see that any posts created by this user have this delete button, and then whenever we click that delete button, then that post is deleted. All right, so now we just quickly want to do the same thing for comments. So now that we've written this function for deleting comments, and again we delete the comment and we fetch all the comments again so that everything's updated in real time. Now that we've implemented that delete comment function, we can go to one of our post pages, and then we'll be able to see that we have a comment here with a delete button, and then when we click that delete button, that comment is deleted. Now that we've completed all the functionality for the site, we're just going to have a quick look through and make sure things work. So the main thing is that we can go to this input up here and we can create a post. And and then within that we can also delete our posts. That is just about everything for this online forum. If you'd like to have a go at creating something like this yourself, you can head over to the Codebots website. Thank you.